New Zealand has the highest rate of domestic abuse per capita in the developed world. Abuse needs silence to thrive. In this series, Simone Butler, herself a survivor of a vicious attack by her ex-partner, meets those brave enough to break their silence. Lima is about to start a course in Pacific languages, despite once rejecting her Samoan roots in an effort to move on from the horrific abuse she suffered growing up.
I want to be able to share my story and be able to do more with my language, because I think that can be a barrier to be able to reach my Pacific community in the different levels. So I want to be able to use the right language to articulate what it is that I've walked out of, and articulate ways for people to be able to share their own stories and understand the value that their stories have and the power that their stories have.
Lima first shared her own story when she was encouraged by her husband to write a book as a way of inspiring others.
And I just thought, what? Like, write a book? I barely read. And so, then the book came about, and a whole lot of things have kind of snowballed from that. Because up to that point, my past, my story, my history, all of that sort of stuff was not something that I shared openly. It was something that I kept hidden.
You grew up in a violent household. Was your dad abusive?
He was. He was very abusive. He was manipulative. He was abusive. He didn't really need any real excuse to beat up on us. We got good at padding up. We got good at, finding which arm was the strongest, all that sort of stuff.
Research shows that victims of childhood abuse suffer long-term mental health problems and are twice as likely to enter an abusive relationship as adults.
One time my mum had made a cake, and the cake was in the fridge, and it was, something bright. One of us tasted the cake, left an imprint of our finger in the cake. We had to line up and fingerprint the cake. Yeah.
And it led to violence. Why do you think your father was so abusive?
He was a very, very heavy drinker, and there were different seasons when he became quite religious. Not only were we dealing with his pride of being the Pacific leader, it was a Pacific leader within the church. And that's where I kind of bred a hate for God.
In time, Lima made her peace with God, and her faith has long since become the strength that enables her to help others. She's meeting with Cabrini, who has devised a course called Pacifica Without Violence, to discuss how culture and sometimes religion is used to justify abuse.
The level of abuse and the type of abuse we endured, it made me not want to have that part of my culture.
Every person that I've worked with, Pacific Islander, culture has been used to dehumanise us, really. We need to really separate our understanding of love and faith from the cultural practice that is absolutely keeping our people imprisoned.
As Lima got older, the abuse worsened.
We got bundled into the car and we were driving down the back roads of Otahuhu, and my mum, she confronted him about an affair that he was having. After she confronted him, he pulled the car over to the side of the road. He came around the back of the car, swung the door open, and he just started beating her. And he just pummeled her. He just kept punching her, regardless of her. She's so tiny. And he just kept hitting her no matter what, and we were all in the car. So he just carried on beating her, and I just thought, he's gonna kill her. And he was just about to grab her by the hair to drag her out to continue to beat her on the road. And that's when my hero, my big brother, he had jumped out, and my brother was just saying, stop, please just stop. And so he stopped, He slammed the door on all, on Mum, and we all got in the car and he drove home like nothing happened. Not only were we being bombarded with all these physical abuse, it was the whole mental and emotional stuff that was going on, constantly hearing, you're useless, you're worthless, you're nothing, you're a nobody. And we carried that everywhere we went, no matter how hard we tried to shake that sort of stuff off, no matter how much we thought we'd made it, there was always that thing that said, no, you're worthless.
Yeah, well, it becomes our inner voice, doesn't it? The psychological damage is so much harder to get over.
It has been the hardest part are the words, because the words come back. That was the hard thing to kind of shake off. And so I had to change the narrative. I had to, change my self-talk, and I had to do what I needed to do to heal.
Every culture, including ours, what's important is to speak when we need to speak, albeit we're terrified because of the norm that goes in the culture. We've got to learn to tell the truth at every event. And in the courses that I run, I say to all the cultural people there, Kiribati, whatever, whoever has a piece to speak that's true for them, they can speak. Sometimes I'm not supposed to speak and people are pulling my dress back, and I say I have a piece of truth to say, and that's what gives me the permission to speak.
I never knew how powerful my story could be. And I never knew how powerful it could be when I spoke it, when I let it out. And so the more I talk, the more I share it, the more I see walls break down, and I see shoulders drop, and I see people feel like I'm not the only one. There is a way out of this mess.
The first step towards getting out for Lima was when she ran away from her abusive dad when she was only 13.
What happened when you ran away?
I just fell into the, drugs and alcohol. I did what I could to numb pain, to get rid of memories. I fell into a relationship, and in that relationship I thought that I had found what I wanted. I thought that was what love looked like. I thought that was where I belonged, and that relationship turned out to be a mirror, reflection of what I had run away from. And in that time I fell pregnant a couple of times, and I miscarried, and then I fell pregnant a couple more times. Things just got really messy.
Now, 15 years later, Lima has a loving husband and an amazing family around her. To get here, she had lots of help, including a total stranger who rescued her from her darkest hour.
It was pouring down with rain, and I remember that I'd reached the end of it. I couldn't do this life anymore. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, I need to get out of this mess. I can't handle this anymore. And I remember looking at my baby. She wasn't even born. I was like, you're better off there, because it's a mess out here. It's not supposed to be. I was supposed to have this ready for you. And out of the blue came this girl. And she put her hand on my shoulder. She was trying to get my attention. And she came out of the blue and said, hey, are you okay? I was like, in my mind, like, who are you? Leave me alone. But the great thing was she sidetracked all that talk that was going on. And she sidetracked me and said, why don't you come home with me? And I didn't want to. And she said, I can't go home without you because my mum and dad are watching from the window. I don't know that I'd be here if she didn't do that.
Lots of people have helped Lima on her journey. An aunt helped her leave the abusive boyfriend.
She was so feisty, so she pulled up to this house and they were having a full-on party. She rocked up in there and just kind of stomped her foot and wanted to know where he was at that time. And I kind of looked over and I could see he was shrinking into the back of the couch, hiding, because my auntie was there. And I just jumped in the car and left with my auntie. That's when I started to get stronger and stronger.
And I think it's really important for women to know that it's not something you can do by yourself.
No.
Like, you need other people to help you.
Lima's husband, Craig, has also helped her find an amazing new life.
He's been so patient and so supportive, and I often say, I just don't deserve you, but I realise now in saying that, then I'm saying, you know what, God, you got it wrong, but he didn't get it wrong.
For Lima, her faith gave her the strength to forgive and share the power of her story.